While the negotiations were going on, Musharraf got weaker and weaker, and Pakistan became more and more unstable politically.
Go! Go, Musharraf, go! Go, Musharraf, go!
Thousands of lawyers are still protesting on the streets of Pakistan cities. The former head of the Supreme Court, who was ousted by Musharraf, issued a call for lawyers to continue their protests.
A feud began over the legitimacy of Musharraf's rule. Musharraf, who reigned for most of his regime under emergency law, used his emergency powers to remove the Chief Justice from power. And that really precipitated, I think, a question of legitimacy for Musharraf's rule.
These events made Musharraf more desperate. And they also convinced Benazir that she had a role to play, to go back, and that role would be complicated and would require real national leadership.
I think he knew that she had to come back. Ultimately, if there was going to be a democratic alternative that involved both Musharraf and Benazir Bhutto, she was going to have to come back. The question was, would she come back after the elections or before the elections?
Bhutto is set to land in her power base Karachi on October 18 after more than 8 years in exile. Thousands of followers from the Pakistan People's Party are expected to greet her.
She was truly joyous about this whole enterprise, both to redeem her role in her family's narrative, to emulate her father's bravery and ultimately his sacrifice, and also to restore herself to the center of Pakistani national life, to write a last chapter.
Our doors are open to all the political leaders and all the political parties in a search for consensus in Pakistan.
She kept saying, do you know, in 8 hours from now, I'm going to be here, in 10 hours from now.
And this time, I'm going to be in my house at this time. I'm going to be there. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be in Pakistan.
Did I give the children pep talks?
She knew what she was doing, and she spoke to us. And, you know, we understood what she had to do.
She reminded us that Allah is going to protect her and protect us, and that she will always come back and visit us from Pakistan.
Ameen. And they will come and visit me when they get their holidays in the winter, won't you?
She had a life that a lot of people would have taken, and yet she decided that it was better to leave that behind and step into this uncertainty.
I'm unaware of the details of the security arrangement, but I think the biggest protection comes from God. And God willing, all will go well.
There were lots of discussions about how her security might take place. It was not going to just be the government, but it was always going to be very dangerous.
We dropped her off at the airport, and all the press were there. We had to portray this normal, strong image, but, you know, inside we were like, oh my God, what's going to happen?
She was genuinely happy that she was going home.
I'm homeward bound.
She flew in on this flight from Dubai with supporters, an equally large number of journalists. It was a chaotic scene. She walked down the steps and she stopped.
She says, I love the air of Pakistan. She had a breeze on her face and she loved it.
Tears fell from her eyes. There was a grandness about it, a scale. It was a spectacle like you've never seen.
There in front of us was this massive humanity.
People gathered either side of the road, on trees, in buildings.
People walked for over 3 weeks, actual walk for over 3 weeks, just to see her.
And I think she was very moved. She stood up, you know, proud in front of the bus, flanked by her party stalwarts.
They'd made a special area for her that was bulletproof, and she never, in the entire journey, went behind that.
I'm calling up from here, everybody and anybody I can get to. Let her go in.
I was with my father and he's like, get her behind the glass.
My father was
Why isn't she going behind the glass?
We inched and inched and inched, and she was out there waving here, waving there. And then gradually, dusk came.
We turned off at this Stargate into the main road. And she pointed out to me that the street lights were going off at in sequence as we drove along, which seemed very suspicious. And then just suddenly there was this sound.
And I was literally sort of blown off this chair that I was sitting on.
The first bomb wasn't very big, and I've been in Afghanistan when there have been suicide bombs, and often there are two. We were all thrown this huge sort of wave of hot air.
We were showered with, it felt like sort of heavy rose petals, but in fact it was human flesh.
I remember lots of people wear these cheap plastic sandals, and these sandals were just everywhere. They'd all been blown off.
I don't think we realized the scale of it until the numbers started coming in, and it was 30 dead, 40 dead, 60 dead. It was terrible.
Just hours after she returned from exile abroad, the former Pakistani Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto has narrowly escaped an assassination attempt.
While I'm not blaming the government for the assassination attacks on me at this stage, nonetheless, we need to have an inquiry as to why the street lights had been shut.
Her primary reaction to the first attack was her belief that it was state-sponsored.
And we tried so hard to get more protection from Musharraf, just a protection that a former prime minister is entitled to. And we're rebuffed and rebuffed and rebuffed.
Whatever was done was more than the maximum. And any aspersion on me, I take very, very strong exception to it.
The choice is between the jihadis and the elements within the administration. The CIA named Baitullah Masood. The jihadis usually boast about it. The guy who the CIA is accused has denied it completely.
Bear in mind, her father, two of her brothers, now herself, had been in mortal combat with the Pakistan state since she was young enough to remember. And she knew exactly what she wanted to do. She was going to play it the way her father did.
After October 18th, she came back to this house, and she came back and saw us for just like 2 days. But we still were happy to see her because we got to see her again, we got to hug her again. And she kept on telling us that life is in God's hands. If I die, it's God's choice.
I beg her not to go back.
It was just not an option for her not to go back. There was a problem that needed solving, and she was the only solution. Well, the best solution.
I think she knew that there were risks. There were risks, of course, by going back, but I think she believed in the people.
You know, it was 1 month before my 18th birthday, so I saw her the night before she was going to leave, and she said,